Hello, everyone, and welcome to Decorative. My name is Mary, and this is Wes, and tonight is episode 2. We're going to be talking about decorative wraps, one of my favorite topics. So, Wes, I know it's not exactly your favorite topic, right?
Nope.
Why is that, though?
Because I get frustrated and bored with them.
You get bored?
Well, yeah, like I'll do a wrap, and you know this because I've done it to you. I'll do a wrap, I'll get the pattern ready. Looks great. Now it's time to close it. Not by me.
Yeah, you do have a tendency. The last couple you handed over to me at the end, and we're like, hey, can you
Hey, I
finish
love
this?
you. Will you finish this wrap, please?
Why are you
Thanks.
leaving me with the crap part?
Bye.
And actually, one of those, I was like, this is not going to work because you had done an entire, like, metallic background.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to pack it, and it was, me and metallic. I don't know why he set me up for this, but I ended up cutting it off and putting the wrap that's on there now.
You talking about the green and white one?
No, I'm talking about Hulkbuster's wrap because you handed me, because you originally did the circle pattern.
Yeah, because I wanted to use the glow thread as the ball in the wrap, and I didn't want to finish it, so
It got difficult.
I handed it to you, and you busted threads and cut it off.
Cut it off and did another one. So I'm not doing that one because I don't want to deal with that metallic, because it was stretchy metallic. It wasn't like the touch it, tink. It was like stretchy. So it just kind of did its own thing. What else do you not like about decorative wraps?
Trying to comprehend the patterns.
So following the directions.
No, I can follow directions. Just look at the IKEA furniture we have that's around the place.
To be fair, they come with pictures.
I can follow directions. I don't want to have to decipher the directions. Which way is right and left if you're reading a pattern script?
Well, right.
So how do I transfer right and left from the pattern script to the blank? What do I look for?
Right and left, like, so if we're looking at a box, a diamond sitting on the blank, your right hand is the right hand side of that box.
Okay. Right and left and tip and butt
Are fixed.
Don't matter.
They're fixed.
If I'm looking at the blank from, say, how we wrap normally right here.
Butt to tip.
Right is on the right, left is on the left,
yes,
right?
your right.
My right is the tip, my left is the butt.
Yes.
If I go to the other side of that wrapper, my left is now the tip and my right is now the butt.
What?
The wrapper didn't move. I'm on the other side of the wrapper. But now my left is the tip, my right is the butt. Because I'm on that side facing us.
You're being way too overly analyzing of this. You're only going to put it in the wrapper a one way and build it that way. You're not going to get in the middle of it and then flip it around. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to do that. You're going to sit down. You're going to be building that blank from butt to tip. Mm-hmm. That's usually how people do it.
So it's just basically based on how you're looking at it.
Yeah, it's your right, your left. Or if you want to be a more fixed position, right is the tip and left is the butt side.
Okay. What side is up?
Up is towards the tip.
But depending on how you wrap, can't up be any side of that box?
Okay. A box is a box no matter how you wrap it, right? Granted, right. if we start on the butt side and we wrap up towards the tip, that's your right side of that box that's been split. That is always going to be right and up towards the tip, because right is up towards the tip. Left is always going to be on the left side of that box. If you start from, and you're wrapping from the butt to the tip with your wrap, that's your fixed directions. If you decide to flip the tape anchor around, the directions of that pattern being wrapped do not change. You changed your side. Your first pass would be going down towards the butt on the left side, and then back up towards the tip on the right side. You just started to draw your box on a different side.
See, it still confuses me.
It's
probably
easier,
because I don't.
Well, the end of the day is it's easier to see it. That's the reason why I think programs like Visual Wrap exist, so that you can see the progression of it as it's going.
Well, and that's part of why you did your courses too.
Yes, because a lot of people were getting confused about it.
Mm-hmm. And I took one of them and went through it before you put them out, and it helped. But I still just don't have the interest in them.
You don't have the patience for it.
Yep.
You just get bored.
I get bored with them, and that's fine. There's people that get bored with them.
But that also goes into there's different kinds of wraps. So I'm a closed wrap person. You do better with open wraps because you wouldn't have to fill it all the way in.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also things like abstract wraps and freeform wraps, which the freeform wrap is something that Tom Kirkman wrote about in Rodmaker a few times. He actually spoke to me at the expo 2 years ago, I think, wondering why people hadn't done it. So that's another version of something you can do. You don't have to close it. Like, it doesn't have to be completely filled in. That's just a preference for me because it keeps that outside thread on an open wrap from like rolling away its neighbor. And granted, there's a way to counter that. You know, you could wrap it, put a sacrificial thread around the outside of the frame.
Size double E.
The biggest thing you've got. So if
G.
you're wrapped in A, you want C or D. If you've got
double E,
you're wrapping in C, you need some big rope, but you would wrap it around the frame of the pattern as tight as possible. So everything I tell you not to do, but you would do it, and then put a coat of CP over top of it. Do not let it dry all the way. If it dries
let it
all
get
the way,
crispy though.
it needs to be half dry because it needs to have its purpose. So for us, it was usually taking Chromasil, the original, about 20 minutes to fully dry here. So I knew about 10 to 15 minute window I could pull it and it not flake off. The one time I forgot about it, it looked like it had snowed on the wrap, and that took forever to pick all that stuff out. But you would just put CP on it, let it half dry, pull it, and that will keep it from rolling away from its neighbor.
It works too.
It does work. It works really well.
I use it anytime I'm doing one.
If I have to do an open wrap, that's a procedure every time. Because I can't stand to have like a good looking wrap and then you've got one little place where the thread got mad at its friend and was like, talk to the hand. I'm leaving.
I'm going to leave this gap here for all to see.
Like, I can't stand it. Personal pet peeve of mine.
So, Mary, what did you find to be the most difficult for you when you were learning how to perform decorative wraps, so to speak? Perform, yeah. I like to use that word perform because you're putting on a performance. Because usually you're recording what you're doing in some way, shape, or form. So
the most difficult thing for me about learning how to do the decorative wraps was I didn't understand any of the jargon at all. None of it. Because I didn't know how to build a custom fishing rod. At that point, I didn't even know that was really a thing, you know?
Yeah.
So butt to tip, axis, circumference, like, you know, I fussed and struggled and did it for weeks. And I knew there just had to be...
Axes.
Yeah, axes. What is that? Oh, I got to pull out, like, grade school circumference, math and stuff. I don't like the maths. I'm not the maths person.
Pi r squared.
Then you got to find the centers in the math. That's actually what I struggled with the most, was the math. And I think if I still had to calculate it, I probably would have given up on them. Because I had to have you sit down with me and figure out how to calculate the taper offset spacing. Wes found the Excel file, and I could just measure the blank and put the stuff in, and it would do all the math for me.
And just spit out the numbers for you to be like...
And I was like, sold. And literally, that's whenever I actually got excited about it, because we weren't spending 20, 30, 45 minutes trying to get the numbers.
Your brain to comprehend why I'm doing this measurement.
Every time I wanted to do a wrap, I had to wait on him to do it for me. Or like to do the measure, not to do the calculations for me.
To do the maths.
Yeah, I needed you to do the maths, because the maths are not my friend either. The maths and the metallics. Apparently I got this thing with M's.
Mary.
And I got a thing with Mary too. 16 wraps. I got a thing with Mary. I don't know what's wrong with her.
So what is the number one question you get asked by students who are just starting out doing wraps? Number one.
Number one.
Most often.
There's two that are like super tied.
Okay.
Pattern spacing.
Yep.
And how am I supposed to pack it? Thread tension. This thread tension and packing are all like together. That's like the biggest things that people have problem with. They don't know how to make the pattern bigger or smaller. They don't know how big they should start with. They've got all the information. They just don't understand how to put the information on the blank. And then ways to, am I wrapping too tight? Am I wrapping too loose?
Is there something you could tell anyone at home who has a doubt on their tension as a way to determine if their tension is the problem?
Biggest things that I explain, if I can't physically show you in person or allow you to touch it and feel it kind of thing, if your threads are not able to be moved and you're busting threads a lot, that's typically a sign that you're wrapping too tight. If your thread, you go to pack it and you can move it pretty easily, but it also like doesn't stay there and it's not closing pretty, usually you're wrapping too loose. Most of the time, everybody's wrapping too tight. It's probably, I would say, about 90% of people, when they first start, are wrapping too tight. Because they're sitting down there trying to put the mechanics of, like, what's going on in your brain with the physical, actual having to pull it and turn the rod at the same time.
And they're thinking, I don't want this thing to move.
Yeah. And they want to put it where it is because people think that it's a better idea to wrap them as tight as possible so you don't have to pack them as much, when you actually need to pack them, and you're going to have to pack them. Because we talk about decorative wraps, and yes, we're doing a lot of wrapping with thread and stuff, but we're actually doing more like decorative packs because we're just packing all the time, especially if you're doing single threads.
So in the words of Little Bear, it needs to be just right.
But if you have a thumbnail or a fingernail, like something that you can pack with, or a tool that you can figure out if you're doing the right tension or not, wrap 5-pass chevron. Take your thumbnail or packing tool, and at the cross point where it actually is crossed, try to push it. If you get a severe amount of pain from your thumbnail shooting all the way up to your wrist and on, it can also go up to your forearm muscle. If it is straight pain and you're not moving anything, it's too tight.
Well, yeah.
If you can't move it at that point and there's only 5 threads there, it's way too tight. If you push on it and you're able to move it super easily, like the packing demos that I had for the expo 2 years ago, I showed them you could move it with pinky nail strength, and let's think about it, our pinkies are not exactly super strong. So I was like, that's able to move that easily. That's too loose, you're gonna have problems later on. You're gonna love packing it right now because everything's just gonna push together, but you're gonna put epoxy on it and it's gonna soak up the epoxy, and then it's gonna get curly on you because it's gonna stretch out.
You'd also mentioned abstract and freeform.
Yes.
What is an abstract wrap?
Abstract is where you are not following a pattern at all. You are just wrapping however you freaking feel.
Okay, so just...
You can do little sections of diamonds. You can just do a line or two going up and down. Like, it is literally just you just putting thread in some random form, wrapping it however you want to. Random abstract. Doing extreme angles, doing, like, nothing's measured. You're pulling with your heart, basically.
Okay. What about a freeform?
So the freeform wrap actually is what I mentioned earlier. Tom Kirkman is the one that wrote about it. At the time, and his first rod maker said that he used, like, glue stick. He would set it beside the wrap as he pulled the thread and placed it, and he would basically glue it to the wrap underneath. Or the second time he tried it, he just put epoxy on and just dropped it in the epoxy and let it go. But when I tried it, I used CP to stick it on there. And all I did was coat the decorative wrap. Like, I just did a base layer of a solid color. And I coated that whole thing with CP. And then I just cut little chunks of color I was going to lay down and just kind of let them do this kind of curly wave kind of back and forth on it. And the first layer that I did, and I posted about that one, was just a solid white. And that actually kind of looking kind of acrylic-ish.
Yeah.
And then on a TikTok a couple nights later, they wanted me to wrap it in like one of the topographical maps that you had mentioned it looked like with the single. And so now it's in the process of getting all those curves filled in. It'll be interesting what that looks like when it gets done, because I have no idea. I'm just playing.
I wonder if you could mimic a map with that.
I'm sure you could. One of the people on the stream was talking about, I'd get, like, getting the coordinates for one someplace and trying to replicate it. I said, that'd be pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah, that would be.
Because it wouldn't be a blatant, like, latitude, longitude thing. It'd be an outside-the-box kind of concept. A lot of potential for it. It's really cool wrap. It's different. It's not going to take you nearly as long as a decorative wrap will. So there's options. Right. They don't always have to be just specific patterns and the crazy things that I do.
So as far as decorative wraps go, I know a lot of people will say, my market won't handle that, or the rods I build don't need decorative wraps.
Well, no, you don't need them.
What would you say to that? My market won't take it, and they don't go on the rods I build.
This is when personal opinion and style kind of come out, basically. Because no rod needs a decorative wrap. But if you could do it, why not have it? They're like one of the most custom things you could do well, everything's the most custom thing, but it's intricate work. It's more like artwork being put on a rod
Mm-hmm.
because of the time that's executed in it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I mentioned before, granted, no, your market might not, if it's in your areas where you're marketing to, like, no, maybe nobody likes it in that area. Maybe they can't afford it. Maybe they, whatever. Post it online so that you bring people in. Once they start seeing you being consistent and posting it and putting it on your own personal rods or, building rods for charities, events, things like that, doing international challenges, putting wraps on them. But you start putting all this stuff out on, everywhere and you're posting pictures about it and it's not for your market specifically.
Mm-hmm. It's on your personal rods.
It's on your personal rods, but then people are going to see it and they're going to be like, ooh, I want that.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're growing your market outside of what your box was because
Mm-hmm.
you tried something new.
Mm-hmm.
But no rod actually needs a decorative wrap, but it's cool. Why not? They also don't need dragon scales or weaves either. But if you're buying a custom, I feel like it should be custom to you.
So you mentioned the international challenges. What about those inspire you to enter them?
Well, the very first one, you're the reason why we got involved with it. Because you were like, I think we need to build one. I think we could do good. And I was just like, I don't think so. But the more that we stuck out with it and we'd get our results back or scores that would tell us, where we needed to improve, we'd have conversation. We have those hard critiques. We'd sit there and listen to people tear us apart. And we'd go, cool, we'll work on it.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're never ugly about it.
Mm-hmm.
But
They're just honest.
Just honest, constructive criticism. Like if you can take that kind of constructive criticism and change it, boom, you're already a couple steps ahead. But those challenges taught me a lot about where decorative wraps belong, where they don't belong, people's opinions on them, how that can affect your score.
What do you mean affect your score?
So you remember the year that we the fly rods were being built, and we did this lovely silver and green and brown
prettiest rod we've ever done, in my opinion.
I think it's the prettiest and the classiest.
Yep, definitely.
Like it's tastefully done, but it's nice.
It's on a silver blank that it stands out.
Metallic silver. Originally we were going to try to do like the silver bullet.
Yeah.
And then the theme kind of organically changed, and now
I'm glad it did.
Yeah, I am too, because it works really well. But it had birch bark and cork, and had an extended-butt in it.
Acrylic and stabilized wood, and a
had
hidden hook keeper in it.
The hidden hook keeper was probably the coolest thing we did. Custom winding jacks, like they were the Alps aluminum winding jacks, but I had dropped little green rhinestones to match it together, make it kind of more custom.
And then the wrap matched the seat insert. And the wrap wasn't 4 inches.
We didn't place, so I think there was like 12 that entered that year.
Yeah, and we placed 11th.
Yeah, we were in 11th that year. 11 out of 12 with that really pretty rod. And the reason why is because when we asked for our test scores, somebody had given me a 0 for my thread work.
Not 1 for doing it, not 5 or 10 or whatever. It was a 0. As if it wasn't even there, even though it's on the rod.
It was a 0. So this particular fly we built was like a 12 weight, and we had designed it for tarpon because
I wanted to get you to catch a large tarpon from the pier on a fly rod as a woman,
knowing it was going to snap.
Yeah,
knew it was going to break. No big deal. Like we built it knowing that that's what it's going to do, but we're building it for that.
May not be the first time or second time, but at some point it's going to break.
It's going to break. There was nothing faulty about how it was built. It was the target species that we were going after that it was going to cause.
And from a pier.
And from a pier to make it break. Like, it's just insanity. It's just what it was. We were just determined. But yeah, so it had a fighting grip, and there was a 4-inch gap between the four grip and the fighting grip.
Yeah.
And in that 4-inch gap, where the blank didn't bend, it did not change or affect the action. Test casting perfect. Static testing perfect. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. So that little 4-inch wrap did not matter. But that little 4-inch wrap, because it was on a fly rod, and this person specifically did not believe.
His exact words were, "Decorative wraps do not belong on fly rods." Yeah. And that's why he gave a 0.
So not a 0 because it was a crap wrap. Not a 0 because of anything else other than he just did not believe that they belonged on fly rods. He was a purist, which the fly rod community in general is very hard to break into putting decorative wraps on their rods because some of them have the old school mentality that they don't belong there.
Yep.
So, Wes, do you think that there is any place on a rod that a decorative wrap can't go?
Just the tip. And I've been waiting to say that and answer that question.
You set that up. Seriously, is there any place other than just the tip that it can't go?
I mean,
not supposed to go.
If it's going to hinder the blank or the finished rod from performing its job to the fullest, that's the spot it doesn't go. But otherwise, why can't it? If it's not affecting functionality, there is no limit. So if you're running a literal stubby that doesn't bend, a kite rod,
oh yeah,
it can go anywhere.
You can do anything.
But if it's affecting the performance and you're taking a 6-inch wrap or a 4-inch wrap and putting it on, I don't know, a 0 weight, yeah, it's going to affect it. It's going to change it. It could be minuscule, but it's going to change it because where you're putting it and what you're putting it on. But that's why you also do static testing.
Well, yeah, because you don't want to wrap into the bend at all. And I usually try to stay like 3 to 4 inches behind that if I can.
And if you're not static testing, you're running the risk of warranty issues.
Yeah. Because any place that we put the thread and the epoxy, it's going to stiffen in that area.
A small portion, yeah.
And it's always going to be trying to fight against each other. So it's just better to be on the safe side and not put it in those places.
That's why you don't put under wraps and size 30 guides on a bass casting rod. Like, it's going to take away from it. You do as minimal as you can to affect the blank, but in some minute way, shape, or form, just wrapping the guides and epoxy them is going to technically change it.
Oh, yeah. Any place. Guides are going to change it. Yeah. Everything changes how that rod behaves, but you're trying to do it in the least amount of way. But, a lot of people argue that they add so much weight. I'm actually pretty curious because I, finished the sparkler course the other day and put 1 coat of CP on it and cut it off. And this was a 6-inch wrap that I did. And I weighed it today because I was super curious.
Well, it's also going to help us in future episodes where we start talking about, how much does the thread weigh once you finished a wrap? How much does it weigh with CP? How much does it weigh with epoxy? How much is this entire thing finished off and wrapped and tied off and epoxied and cured and sanded? And how much does it actually weigh?
Yeah, because I'm actually curious. I mean, I've been telling people, it's no big deal because we build a lot of larger rods or on the smaller bass rods and fly rods and stuff. It's in appropriate sections and it's shorter. But I weighed this thing today. How much do you think that just the thread and 1 coat of CP weighs?
0.1 ounce.
Less than that.
0.01.
Nope.
0.02.
0.05. 0.05 ounces.
6-inch wrap.
It
4 inches
barely-
of usable space.
4 inches of usable space, but we're counting all that extra thread at the ends too, because that's what the full weight of it is.
Well, that'd probably account for the weight of the CP.
What I'm going to try to do is find something I can slide this back onto.
The same blank you cut it off of?
I can't do it on where I had it because it's in the grip section where I wrapped it on that rod. Because it's shorter up to where my camera is. So I can't put it on there. It'd be covered up. No
We
point.
might have another one that'll fit on there.
But kind of to sum up everything that we talked about tonight, we've talked about the different kinds of wraps, open wraps, closed wraps, the struggles that what we had personally and what others have told me as far as learning how to do them, kind of where you shouldn't put them, where you want to put them, dealing with the market that you have available, how you can bring in other people, even if they're not in your local market. Opinions are sometimes an issue depending on what you're doing, but just basically being smart about where you're placing them and how long they're going to be. And as long as you're static testing and doing your test casting, because if you're not test casting your rods after you've built them, you're doing yourself a disservice. Because
even during building.
Because sometimes we can build them and they look great. The static test was great. Casting test sucked, and so you have to go back and tweak some stuff. But don't wait till the end to do it because your guides are already on there. You need to be doing the static test and then
Test
casting immediately to make sure it's going to be performing the way it is, so you can tweak it and get it the way it needs to be. basically, I think the only other answer we need to ask is like, why should they put a decorative wrap on there? Because I'm going to tell you that you should put one on there because they're fun and unique. And if you come to me as an individual to build a rod or, to learn a pattern from or whatever, I'm never going to do the same thing twice.
You know what I'm going to tell you is the reason why you should put decorative wraps on rods?
What?
Because you can get more money for them.
It's true. They're paying for an art at that point. They're paying for skill. They're paying for art to be put on the rod,
Yep.
Make it unique, make it different, make it custom. If you're doing these elaborate closed wraps like I do, then you've got a personal art piece that nobody else will ever have. If you're getting 5-pass, 8-pass chevrons in sets, that's your set that you got.
Yep.
Hopefully nobody else
just make
has
sure you're making money
one.
on it too. Just make sure you're making money on it too.
Yeah, and
Like, don't be doing this for nothing.
No, don't cut yourself short. Figure out what your average of how long it takes you to wrap a wrap, like a closed one. That's usually, or an open one, either one, and then kind of to figure out what you want to work for a wage per hour, and wherever you're happy settling, that's where it should be.
Mm-hmm.
But just know that it's harder to increase your prices later, so try to be mindful of that little.
Yeah, you can't.
You don't want to start
literally
cheap
double your
learning.
prices. You won't be able to pull off doubling your prices.
No, you can't go. It's harder to go up than it is to go down.
So, what would be if someone's wanting to get into adding decorative wraps? What would you recommend them getting in order to start out?
Well, the most important thing is to get Decorative Wraps by Billy Vivona. That's the book I learned from. That's the book I teach because I learned from it. That's got pattern spacing in it. That has a lot of the information that I tell you guys or anybody else that listens to me talk about them. How, it's all that information that I'm telling you is coming from his book. None of this I figured out on my own for the most part. Now, some of it I have over the years, but that's the most important thing. Get the book and read it a couple times and then try to figure out what it's saying. And if you're still confused with it, I have the online courses on threadcentral.net where you can go and pick a pattern of the ones I've done so far. I think there's like 15 or 17 courses now, and it walks you through step by step on how to set it up, from measuring your blank to writing the pattern to putting the threads on there and packing it and all the way to the close. So that's a great way to go. But other tools that I would recommend getting is a good packing tool, a decorative wrap alignment jig, or butt alignment jig as they've been called too, which is basically you drop the blank in the jig, you can draw a straight line, and it's so much easier to have a wrap end on a straight line or as a straight line if you started with a straight line. Circle template's the easy way to measure it. You could do it with tape to get the circumference. There's a whole list of stuff, but the book is the most important. The other stuff you can get in time. They're all very useful and cut your setup time down, basically. Makes it quicker. But that's all the stuff I use. And double-sided duct tape.
Yep.
Don't
and
use
all of
masking
that
tape.
stuff can be found on threadcentral.net.
Yep.
Okay.
And, all those Facebook groups, the Southern Rod Builders, the Women's Rod Building Alliance, and my group for the students is called Decorative Wraps by TDS. All of those I do live videos once a month for each group that is pertaining to threads and decorative wraps of some sort. It could be trim inlays and me inviting somebody else on. We might, in Southern, we're going to be trying to talk about visual wrap this month with David Bull. We're just trying to work out the logistics of me bringing him on and him being able to use overhead cameras as he's going through the visual wrap program.
Yeah. And if David's listening to this, he better be prepared. 'Cause
we're still testing it because
I got some questions, homie.
we want to make sure that we're right. Yeah.
I got some things I want to do in visual wrap, and I need to know if this is possible.
He's got the crazy ideas. I just use it as the bare minimum.
I want to code it. I want to be able to make my wrap from start to finish, and I want to be able to do what I want it to do.
Well, he'd be the man to talk about it because he wrote the program.
I know.
But yeah, we just want to take a minute and thank American Tackle for being our sponsors. Great company to work for. Very excited to be a part of their brand, if you will. And
that's from now on known as FOG.
The press release went out Wednesday, and Mudhole and American Tackle are now merging together into one company called the Foundation Outdoor Group.
FOG.
FOG for short.
But basically, they're going to be joining in as a conglomerate of two companies coming together as one to be the largest rod building supplier in the world.
Yes, and it's going to be awesome. And it's supposed to bring more components and, obviously better customer service because we're merging those two together. So it should be a exciting thing for
I'm looking forward to it.
Everybody. But Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, trying to load the YouTube channel, trying to get that built. So if you are not a subscriber, come subscribe, please. I'd love to be your friend. But I plan on dumping out a lot more how-to videos and stuff in the future there. And putting the video podcast out on there as well. And we welcome feedback. So if there's something that you guys want us to talk about or you want to learn about,
controversial or not, I'm all for it.
Post it in the comments. We'll try to work about it because this is for you guys. So if you're learning anything from it, let us know. We'd really appreciate it. Share it to anybody that want to know. But we have the actual podcast is on Spotify,
Amazon, Apple.
It's on the Samsung podcast as well, and then we've got the YouTube video version.
Mm-hmm. But thanks everyone for joining in, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Bye.